Welcome, welcome. Here we are again with another revolutionary conversation. Today, my beloved sister Jules and I, Janel Wilette, are going to talk about the hidden treasures that are deep within our heart and our soul. Those hidden treasures that can only be accessed through a receptivity, an availability, and a presence that has a balance of effort and ease, yin and yang. This place inside ourselves that might be like the golden equilibrium, where we meet our own center, our own selves in a place that we can see someplace inside ourselves that's really true and truly real. And the focus that we're going to speak of is a focus that is as much internally as externally. So that your North Star that's deep inside yourself is really seen, it's revealed, and it's accessible, that you can discover the truth of who we are and how to become more true, real, authentic, and trusting of that internal power, that internal presence, as well as intelligence. Because, like that saying, your heart knows the way. But so often, the mind hijacks and takes over.
I can really speak to that and feel that as you say that, Janelle, because as I've been on this inner journey in myself, I recognize my own nature, and maybe you're listening to this, maybe you can feel this as well, of my mind wanting to take over, feeling like I'm out of control, feeling like I don't have power, and trying to grab for that power back so that I can be back in control, or so that I can know with my head what's going on, so that I can logically work through all of the pieces in consecutive order and make sense of things again. And I know in my being that that's not the way to do it. And at the same time, that overriding of that mind that I've put so much energy and attention into that power and control and capability and capacity of my mind, that it's supposed to do it all, right? How would you, curiously, as we're playing and dancing with this idea, how would you say to everybody listening, like, how to best navigate that so that we can start to play in a new way, so that our mind doesn't have to be the dominant and take over every time?
Right. You know what comes up for me, Jules, is what's underneath the feeling. Is it love or is it fear? And if there's something in the mind that's jostling and that you feel predominant in your mind, it's probably because of fear. Right? So it's in a gentle, compassionate way to take an extra moment and feel what's underneath that thought, that trigger, or that emotional response that you're experiencing. Because the mind is protecting either the brokenness or the woundedness or the part of you that hasn't seen the light of day to know itself in its fullness. Meaning that it actually is coming from a place of benevolence to say, give me some TLC. And I like to look at TLC as truth, love, and consciousness, the new TLC. So truth is taking a step back and looking deeper to discover the true truth. Like, what's really going on here? Is what the mind is telling me, the doubts, the fears, or, creating its own plan, is coming from the mind, and that orchestration is covering up the intelligence of the heart that trusts because it knows its own capability. When our heart is open, because it doesn't know fear. So it's layer by layer. And so just even in that witnessing awareness, you can call a spade a spade. You know what? Yeah, this is a trigger from when I was 3, when I was 7, when I was 14. And I wasn't included in the popular group. And so I felt betrayed. And now I keep trying to be in a place of earning my worthiness, earning love, earning attention. But once we step back, we tell ourselves the truth. And from that compassionate place of then, the love, the benevolence of the universe, and just letting ourselves feel into that, how it was at that time. Like, where was the first time I started to earn my worthiness? And I let other people put upon me the truth that I've then assimilated and found as true. And in that consciousness, that's the intelligence. The self can really begin to feel into the worthiness that's always been there from the very, very beginning. And to hold ourselves. And in a way, Jules, I like to see that as the antidote, because with any time the mind wants to dominate and jump in, it's protecting something. So what is it protecting? What is it trying to keep you safe from? Because now it's been 5 years, 5 months, 5 decades ago. You're safe. Everything's going to be okay. So now is a good time when we're adults to look back and go, okay, there's nothing on the line here. I can look from the summit of the soul, the eyes of recognition of what's really going on here, a larger landscape. And really what it takes is this inner perspective of I'm going to stick by myself. I'm going to stand by my own self. I'm going to stand by that part of myself and stick up for myself, because maybe my mother didn't, or maybe my friends didn't, or the people who didn't recognize me for who I was. And so in a way, people call it reparenting, but it's bringing ourselves back to the truth, the love, and the consciousness. And inside of that is like the all caps knowing, and knowing that that's what's really true and truly real. And then once we presence and we don't push it down with the contractedness and the thoughts and the mind, something greater can arise and fill our cells and tissues and sort of sprinkle our minds with a joy, with a comfort, with an ease, with a presence that's like, you know what, I belong here. I'm going to stick up for myself, not by fighting, but in that presence.
It's so interesting as you're saying that, Janelle, because there was an image of soil all of a sudden, like the ground that hasn't had rain in a long time, and how hard it is for things, for water even to get into that ground because it's so solid. It's almost like we create these like protective boundaries around ourselves, so much protection that even when the love comes in, even when the rain comes in, we're not like permeable to it. We're not receptive to that level because the protection is so dense or so strong or so so adamant that it needs to keep us safe, or there's so many layers of it, like you said, there's so many layers piled up on top of each other that
Yeah.
it feels really hard to get to those, to the depths of it. And I know in my own experience lately, as I'm, you know, shuffling through these layers and going, oh my goodness, like why is it that I don't want to see that? Oh, because I'm ashamed of it. Ugh. It's easier to turn away from shame. But in reality, those are the layers that need the love, the consciousness, the awareness the most, so that that light can permeate through, or so that
Mm-hmm.
water can permeate through the soils to the next layers and the next layers and the next layers. So I guess my question is, and this is, you know, a question, just as always, just that curious dance that
Yeah.
we do together. Um, when it comes to being able to bring light to all of these layers, I know that I'm definitely guilty of like wanting to like, okay, let's just do it all and make it happen. Um, what is that timeline, or how can we best be gentle with ourselves as we're moving through these layers, so that we're not pushing too hard and using our mind to try to figure it out, but also so that we're not, you know, just breaking ourselves down completely and being completely overwhelmed.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's this term called self-care. And um, I'd like to call it um, golden soul care, right? Because when we go into that place inside of ourselves that is our soul, and we feel into our soul, the first thing is be curious enough to look for it. Like, wow, have I ever felt my soul? Where is it? How do I find it? I don't know. Gee, people talk about soul, but does my soul live in my body? Does my mind know where to find it? Ah, so when we find that place inside ourselves that is the soul, the one that we've always been, the unchanging presence, and that inner knowing that never changes. And so that to me is the greatest discovery, because we find inside each and every single person on the planet can find their soul. You have a unique soul. You were born with that soul and leave with that soul, and that soul is never going to change. And it doesn't jostle and lessen in the midst of the situation and circumstances. And to me, that's really where the golden jewel is revealed. And as we begin to develop a relationship with our own soul, we realize that there's something inside ourselves that doesn't change in the midst of the ups and downs, the chaos, the turbulence, the obstacles, and the challenges. And so when we have a relationship with this part of ourselves, then the greatest challenges and the greatest fears, or even that triggering of something that feels bigger than we are, can be met from a deeper place inside ourselves. So, of course, your personal self is there. But if you take a time out in the midst of your morning and your afternoon, your evening, and you just get soul centered, get soul centered. And a lot of times we find ourselves in this soulful place when we're in awe and wonder in nature, or when we're with a baby, or when we're like skiing down that beautiful snow that just makes us feel like we're flying. We're like, weightless and free. Because when we're in that awe, the mind relaxes and it sort of sits back. And so, what is that routine or ritual that you can do often to begin to practice and to develop a relationship with your soul self? And the more that you, just like any relationship, the more you practice that, more it becomes more trustworthy and alive and accessible. So then when big things come along, you feel like you've got this trusted strength inside yourself and this presence. And that becomes your go-to versus the past way of managing or being hyper vigilant to prevent something from happening, or not doing something, or not being open to letting it find its way into you.
I'm glad you said it like that, Janelle, because I know I'm not the only one. Sure, the people listening can feel this as well. Is that like being hyper vigilant, preparing in advance, making sure that you've done everything you can so that this thing doesn't happen, or to prepare and have so many outcomes that might happen in advance so that you're prepared when they happen. I've spoken to so many clients throughout the years about how the mind tries to prep us for all those potential outcomes. And so much so that we're not even able to be in the flow. We're not able to be receptive, even to those going for a walk in the woods. And after coming back from a 2-hour hike in the woods, realizing that you weren't actually ever there, you were in your head the whole time. I've had so many people relate that. I've experienced that before, where there was just something that was on your mind, and were you actually even receptive to nature, to like the awe and wonder of this gorgeous, gorgeous space? Or were you, did you even leave your head?
Yeah. And there's another piece to that. And I think the other aspect is that we must be responsible. It's one of our pillars of evolution to really take responsibility for our own self and our own way of being. And it's really that mastery that we have to have the discipline, devotion, and the determination. I remember back about 30 years ago when I had my first, actually next year it's going to be 30 years, and I had my first undertaking as an entrepreneur. So I was the one in the driver's seat all the time. And so when I would have extra time and I'd go out for a run, I started to think about, oh, what am I going to do? And doing all this micromanaging of my business. And finally, I just said, time out. Janelle, if you're going to be in the business mode, stop and go do your business. And I literally just called myself out on it. I remember the exact place I was on the road in Connecticut. And I just said, okay, you know what? You're going to do one thing or the other. Either you stop that and go for a run and come back to it, or you go do it. And then when you're done, go run. And so I developed, and I don't even know where it came from. It was probably just a gift from the heavens, a whisper in the winds. And I picked it up and I said, you know what? That's really gold, because I wasn't present. And of course, that's when we're also very accident prone, because I'm not present in my run. I'm not present in what I'm doing, putting one foot in front of the other. I wasn't even aware of my breathing. I wasn't aware I was on the road. And so at that moment, it was just like, call it off. The mind has to sit still. And so, of course, it's like any kind of a practice. It's going to take practice. And now, because I've been practicing that with regularity and consistency, the mind is very, very well behaved. It's not like those thoughts don't continue to arise, but it's what I do with those thoughts and those feelings and those habitual little monkey mind habits. Become the master of your mind, and you become the master of your universe, so that you can avail yourself to that presence that holds a greater intelligence, a greater knowing. and also the compassionate love to meet yourself in those places that don't feel worthy or feel like they're enough or don't have the trust yet. Because that presence will hold you and all of that in the midst of.
Wow. And as you say that, this inside out approach, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
a completely different one. In my past, when I hear responsibility, it's, oh, I have to be responsible for my kids. I have to be responsible for my future self. I have to be responsible. It's always on the outside that I'm being responsible. And the
Mm.
way you just described your
Yeah.
journey on the road and the run, um, it's about self responsibility. It's about self compassion. It's about bringing it all back to insourcing versus resourcing everything else outside of us, right? That it's actually, this is where we need to do the work. This is where that discipline, where that um, devotion and determination, that sense of knowing, oh, wait, it's not devotion to everyone else. It's not determination to some outside goal. This is
Yeah.
this is all directed inwards. And the power that comes from being able to channel that degree of capacity within ourselves and the receptivity that comes not just in the mind being receptive, but that you can actually tell the mind to sit down. This isn't the time right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
We're here in this moment. That is just brilliant. If we all had that available to us, Janelle, or if we all
Mm.
remembered that we have that available to us
Yeah.
and practiced it, wow,
Yeah.
the world would be a different place.
Right. Right. And it's so much more than mindset. Everyone seems to be very into like mindset and mantras and all of that. But just like you said with the soil of like, go deeper than that because you are of so much more than your mind. You have infinite capacity, so many levels and layers of presence and power and passion and potential than you can imagine. And it's really that inward journey that gives you a capacity to show up in the world in a very different way. And so your example as a mother, as a manager, as a steward in whatever way you have in your work or humanity, it's that which you do for yourself that's going to have the greatest impact in your world, in what you want to create and how you create what you create.
Mm, yes. Yes. There's, we always think there has to be more to it, that we're supposed to be doing more. But really, in the reality that we're living in, us being in, like we were talking about, having our own determination, taking our own self responsibility and devotion for ourselves, that is making the biggest impact. And we all have access to that. We can all do that for ourselves. And that impacts everybody in such a profound way.
What if we all took, 3 minutes of self-centered moments, you know, 3 times a day, right? And even so, then the presence that we have for another is so much more. We have so much more compassionate presence to hold someone when they're feeling that feel of triggered or, awkwardness or contractedness or just, you just didn't feel like getting out of bed in the morning or something's just come over you and you just feel depressed. You don't know what it is. And so if we all did that, we would hold each other in a different way. And that's the power that can change
Everything.
everything. because it begins within. And our greatest gift is that which we do for ourselves, with ourselves. And of course, you get such great benefit because there's so much grace and ease when we begin to weave that internal aspect of ourselves with external. It's not like you take anything away from yourself, it's just adding that golden thread of your soul centered self. And we talk a lot about that in the journey, the immersion into your immortality and invincibility. And that's weaving that golden thread. And what the immersion is an experiential journey. So you really learn how to do that. You have the practice and you have the presence of a great company of people who are doing that immersion with the guidance and the support. That's a lifetime opportunity that will change your life forever in ways that you can't even imagine. Because once you have this tool and have the capacity to use the jewels, everything changes and shifts in such a great way that you know you always have that capacity and capability to meet whatever comes your way. And so with an open heart and an open mind, you meet life. It's a really big deal.
There's nothing bigger than being able to let life live through you, as I've heard you say so many times before. Instead of us thinking that we are commanding life and controlling it and we're making it happen, making life happen, living life to the fullest. It's like, actually, are you letting the fullness of life live through you? Like that's a whole different feel to it. So if this speaks to you, and we're so happy speaking to you with every revolutionary conversation. Janelle and I, just love doing these. We also host what we call the Golden Genius Mastermind. It's every second Wednesday. And that's an opportunity for like-minded, like-hearted souled individuals who are actually open to wanting to dig in and discover and explore and be curious about what the genius inside of us, that golden genius, wants to bring into the world. It's a different theme every time. We don't know what the theme is until it comes through, but it's always beautiful. So if that's something that speaks to you, please reach out to us at Golden Genius Mastermind at gmail.com. And that is, there's so much happening and so much that's come alive in this conversation. Please give yourself the opportunity to just feel how it's landing with you. What parts speak to you? If you need to listen to it again and feel it out, because we all have some degree of resistance, because like Janelle, like you said, it's protection. It's protecting us. But do we still need that protection? Is that really necessary for us to step into what we're being called from within to step into next? And that's what we're here to support, that next level leap inside of you that's ready to be taken, but doesn't know how to do it and doesn't want to do it on its own. This is it. We don't have to do this on our own anymore.
This is the most worthy journey of how we do what we do, not just what we do, how we do what we do. Because then in some way, we're really weaving the yin and the yang, the inner dynamic of if we're a man, our inner feminine, if we're a woman, feeling the balance of the inner masculine and feminine. So there's this grace and this presence of effort and ease, this balance, this equanimity that can flow. It's almost like grace. And it's only when we're really in that center where we feel that responsibility, we show up. We don't force. And there isn't strain or opposition.
And as we often say, as we land this conversation with that lack of opposition and strain and push, it's more of a dance. And we would invite you to join us for the next revolutionary conversation, for Golden Genius Mastermind, to dance within all of the potential that exists, that's awakening within you. And we're so happy to be on this beautiful dance with you. So thank you, Janelle.
All right.
Thanks
Always
everybody
a
for
pleasure and
listening.
joy. All right.
Yes, take care,
See you
everyone.
next
See you next
time.
time.